G'day, I'm Paul. That car behind me is a Porsche, or a Porsche, depending on how you want to pronounce it, but because I'm Australian and I use words like g'day, mate, skippy, all that sort of stuff, I pronounce it weirdly, so pretend I'm saying it properly. Porsche. Now, this is the Cayenne. Think of the Cayenne as like the main meal. It's the peas and corn, and if you jump to the Cayenne Turbo or Turbo S, that's like the creamy mash. It's hearty, it's filling. And then the 911 is like dessert, and if you go to the GT2 RS, that is a sticky date pudding. Let me explain what I mean. So the Cayenne kind of funds cars like the 911 and Porsche's other interesting products. And what they're now doing is they're making spin-offs of the Cayenne to increase the amount of money that's coming in to pay for other things. And this is one of the newest derivatives. It's called the Cayenne Coupe, and I reckon it looks interesting rather than interesting, if you know what I mean. So how much does it cost? This starts in Australia from $128,000. This is the base model Cayenne Coupe. It competes against things like the BMW X6, the Mercedes-Benz GLE Coupe, and things like the Audi Q8, which I reckon is an absolutely stunning car. You can see the rest of the pricing for the Cayenne Coupe down in the comments section below. Today we're going to do a detailed review of this car, so if you'd like to skip ahead, use the time codes above, or alternatively, if you're on YouTube, just scroll down for the links. And if you haven't done so already, I'd love it if you could hit subscribe and also press the bell icon. It's going to tell you each time we jump behind the wheel of a new car. Let's start with the exterior. You can pick from 8 different colors, and the 2 entry-level colors, white and black, are free of charge, but stuff like this metallic color are $2,300 extra. Then there's a couple of extra fancy colors you can get for like $5 grand more. So there's plenty to choose from. We're gonna go through the options later as well that are fitted to this car. But have a look down the front here. This may look just like a normal grille, but hidden in behind here are active vanes. These shutters open and close, and it may be counterintuitive, but when you first start the car, they actually stay closed so the engine can warm up quicker. The engine is most efficient when it's at operating temperature, so they stay shut until it hits that point, and then they can open and close depending on how much cooling is required. The more closed they are, the more aerodynamic the car is as well. Has a coefficient of drag of 0.35, which is not really amazing, but it is a big SUV, and this is how they managed to get some of those fuel figures down. You see the camera here for the 360 surround view system, which I'll walk through later. It's actually quite good on this car. Front and rear parking sensors, and have a look at this scallop out of here. This is kind of built for off-roading, even though you never want to go off-road in it. 500 millimeters of wading depth, which is the amount of water you can take on before you reach the first bit of electronics, and that's pretty impressive for what is effectively a luxury SUV. That's in addition to 210 millimeters of ground clearance. While we're down here, have a look at that exposed radiator there, top and bottom, and then also the full LED headlights. Let's skirt around to the side here. So standard on this car are 20-inch alloy wheels, but this has the optional 21-inch wheels. Giant brakes, so these are 4-piston monoblock calipers, 350 millimeter rotor. It's a big set of brakes because A, this is a sporty car, it's a Porsche, but it is also a big and heavy car, so you need to be able to stop it confidently. And have a think where this car is mainly going to be driven at speed, and that's in Germany. It can do 240, 250 kilometers an hour. You've got to be able to pull it up from that speed. In terms of dimensions, it's just under 5 meters long, so it is a big car, but you can see as you get to the back, it kind of just gets cut off here, whereas the Cayenne comes down and then comes sort of flat like that, whereas this has that scalloped bum to it, similar to the X6 and the GLE Coupe. I'm not 100% sold on this design. This one here has the optional tinted taillights, and I love this strip. At night time, that looks really cool. And then the 3D lettering as well looks great as well with that Cayenne badge on the back. Quad exhaust outlets. This is the optional sports exhaust, so that's the reason that looks different. And then I love this as well. This is the spoiler. So you've got one spoiler here, above 90 kilometers an hour, or about 50 miles an hour. This extends by 135 millimeters, so it gives it that really sort of dynamic look on the road. And you can imagine if you're barreling down an autobahn at 200, this thing is going to be absolutely hauling, and you need this to keep the back end down. So let me know what you think about the design at the rear. I don't know, I'm not really in love with it, but I am sure about how expensive this car is going to be if you start ticking some option boxes. Have a listen to this. Sports exhaust system, $5,970. 21-inch Cayenne exclusive design wheels, $5,880. LED headlights with Porsche design lighting system, $2,860. Comfort access, $2,420. Dolomite silver metallic exterior, $2,300. Tinted LED tail lights, $1,750. Interior package in textured aluminium, $1,630. Front seat heating, $910. And ambient lighting, $850. There's probably 4 or 5 things on there that I would think would be standard on a car like this, such as perhaps seat heating or comfort access. That's literally a proximity entry to the car. It's like standard on a $30,000 Hyundai. Come on, Porsche. Let's talk interior. The old Cayenne was pretty average inside. This is looking a lot better. Check out that giant infotainment screen. That's standard across the entire range. I'm going to go into a lot more detail on this system very shortly. But what about the rest of the styling? You can see piano black. I don't really like that stuff. They've kind of got it everywhere throughout this cabin. And I mentioned earlier in that options list, the textured aluminium. This is where your $1,600 is going on the doors and the dashboard. I don't know, let me know in the comments below whether you think it looks good and what you'd get there instead, and whether you think $1,600 is expensive for little bits and trinkets that they're going to add to the cabin. In terms of the layout of it, in addition to all this piano black, you've got capacitive touch buttons. So as you press one of these buttons, you don't even need to press it, you just lean your finger on it and hear that click. How cool is that? She'll even talk to you if you press it a couple of times. So overall, this does look really nice, but it is a lot of black, piano black, normal black, but you can get different interior colors. So that is a good thing. Let's have a look at our hardness tester. So this is our test to see how soft the soft touch dashboard is. This is called a gyrometer. It measures on a hardness scale of 0 to 100, where 0 is super soft, just like my insides, and 100 is super hard, just like my pecs. And what we're going to do now is put it on the dashboard and we're going to see what this measures. Let's give that a shot. 61, that's pretty good. And let's try this center console lid. Oh, that's not too bad. Okay, so we have heard your feedback. We're going to build a table into our future reviews, and you'll also be able to see how this car compares to other cars. We're going to build like a big spreadsheet so you maths whizzes can go and start computing things and seeing how soft things are compared to prices. So it's coming. Just quickly on build quality, you'd expect it to be good in a car like this, and I can report this is sturdy. It is built like a German tank. Nothing around here feels low quality, with the exception of parts of the steering wheel. These buttons on here feel a little bit cheap. While you're getting the metallic finish on the paddle shifters, the buttons themselves and the drive mode selector are all sort of plastic and just feel a tiny bit nasty. I would have loved to see a metallic finish on some of these. Let's talk infotainment. Porsche. A lot of people think of that as a car company that isn't really big on technology, especially infotainment. If you look at the previous generations of PCM, they've been a bit old and dated and haven't really worked that well, but they're now completely changing the game when it comes to technology. So we're going to split this up into 3 sections. The first, we're going to talk about the main infotainment screen. Then we're going to talk about Porsche Connect, which is the new application that communicates with the car remotely. And finally, we'll talk about the screens here in front of the driver as well. So let's kick things off over here with the central infotainment system. The screen is a high definition screen, 12.3 inches wide. It is a ripper of a screen because as you approach it, you get extra context menus, and you'll notice those when you go through the nav, but it also just displays everything in a fairly logical fashion. Everything's easy to find, and then you have lots of detail within sub menus as well. So to make things easy, I'm going to go through each of the menus to walk you through the system and then give you the highlights as well. So this is the home screen. This is what it's presented like. You can customize this, move things around if you need to, but all of your critical functions are here. We'll go into the nav menu first. You click nav on the side here and it presents you with options for the map, destination and favorites. This is a very fast system. It moves around very easily and it's easy to navigate around the screen and then to center back on the car. In terms of entering a destination, it's all done here on the screen. You simply click on destination and then you have a number of options here in terms of points of interest, recent destinations, and also manually putting in destinations. So let's try Melbourne Airport here. That's my go-to for checking if this stuff works. There it is here. So you see a bunch of different options there in terms of suburbs and then points of interest such as the airport as well. And then it's also able to search online as well. With that Porsche Connect system, there's a SIM card built into the car, and then it's able to query the likes of Google to see which other locations are nearby that have similar starting names to what you've just started typing in. Now I'll show you here as well what it looks like when the context menu comes up as your finger approaches. So here is my finger approaching and you can see all of the menus start appearing. So it gives you a bigger look on the screen when you're not interacting with it, but when you need extra context items, they simply appear when your finger gets near the screen. So that's a great setup. This is cool because not only does this car do AM, FM, DAB plus digital radio, with a Porsche Connect setup, it will stream online radio stations. So this is the only car that I've really found that's similar to my Tesla, for example, that allows you to just search for any radio station around the world, including Spotify and stuff like that. So that's all built into this system. And it's all fairly quick as well, depending on which brand of SIM card you go with and which operator you run with. You have internal storage and then connectivity throughout the car as via USB-C. So you can stream through your phone when it's connected remotely, or you can simply hook up a USB device and then connect with USB-C. Let's have a look at the phone menu. So the good thing here is that Apple CarPlay is included, but on top of that, it's wireless Apple CarPlay, so you never have to plug anything up. It is disappointing though that Porsche doesn't offer Android Auto. I think it's coming, but not available yet. The other disappointing part about this system is you don't have widescreen. So you simply get a screen here that kind of looks out of place because it's not a widescreen setup. So it doesn't really look right in there. Then as we go through the rest of the menus, you can change all of your assist functions. The good thing here is that everything is displayed in here through assist functions and also the camera. So if I enable this is a really high quality surround view camera. So it uses those front and rear parking sensors, plus also the surround view, which is cameras on the front, the sides and the rear. Then if you give it one more push, it like morphs into another widescreen angle. And then check this out as well. Hit that button and it cleans the camera at the back. How cool is that? The sound menu allows you to adjust the sound stage in the car, so adjusting your tone, where your speakers are playing music. It's all pretty basic stuff. As you step up through the Cayenne range, you're getting higher end sound systems available, so you will get more immersive sound, but this is just the base sound system here, which is a 10 speaker unit. Devices, this is where you connect your phone and also get your data connection set up as well. So you can see within the car at the moment we have a SIM card for data and also my phone connected for Apple CarPlay and also making phone calls. Over in the climate menu, this is where you can set up your air distribution. You can also configure if air comes out of these vents up here, how hard and intense the air coming out is, and whether you want your air conditioning in eco mode to save fuel. So there is a high level of customizability here, which is great. In the apps menu, this is where all your Porsche Connect functions live. You can select everything from Amazon Music through to Google search, finding nearest restaurants. This is how the car interacts with the cloud to find information that is going to be useful to the driver. Then if we scroll down to the set menu, this is where you configure all the functions of the car. There's actually a lot of stuff in here that you're able to change, everything from the configuration of the Sport Chrono system, so that's the clock up the top there. This allows you to time lapse and just, I don't know, I just reckon it looks cool. You've got to get the Sport Chrono package when you get a Porsche because it's just a work of art. The car menu is where you're going to be able to activate things like the exhaust. This car has the optional exhaust system, so one push of that opens the valves. This is where you can manually open the spoiler. So if you want to be in Porsche driver mode, also described as another word that starts with a W. You can activate the spoiler when the car doesn't need it if you so desire. You can also switch the stop-start system off, set the chassis mode, so this is the suspension firmness, and finally set the drive modes as well. There's actually an off-road menu too. This gives you an idea of just how capable this car is off-road. I love the highlights here. It shows you that our centre and rear differentials are unlocked at the moment, but as you progress through the menus, it will start gradually locking those differentials to make this car quite capable off-road. Now, the other great thing here as well is you're able to set the LED interior lighting color. So currently it's lemon green, which sounds a bit gross. So if we jump over to topaz blue, it'll highlight everything in the car in that color. You can change the intensity as well. And then you can pick whichever color you want it to be and then change the intensity around the cabin too. So yeah, it's a really great setup and I love what Porsche has done with this system. The final bit I'll mention here is that you can also enable Wi-Fi. So my phone is currently paired to the car over Wi-Fi. Means the car has a bigger antenna, it has better strength. So you're able to pair and then share the devices around the car. If you've got kids in the back there, they can all connect to it and not use any of their own data. Let's talk Porsche Connect. This is the application that allows you to remotely connect to the car. This is one of the better ones. I've tested a lot of these applications, but this one actually is quite smart in the way that it works. So when you crack it open, it shows you your car. Here it is, Cayenne Coupe, same color and spec that we're driving as well, which is great. And then you can flick through to the different sides of the car and it will tell you which doors are open. So currently we have the passenger door open, it tells you if the park brake's on, and then also whether the car's locked or unlocked. You can then send remote commands to the car. So I can flash the lights, I can remotely lock or unlock the car, and then I can also remotely sound the horn as well. This menu up the top here tells you whether it's kind of like the circle of trust. It's complete because we have access to the Porsche server, the mobile device, and the wireless LAN that is inside the car. So that all goes green when it's happy. As you scroll down, you can see the range left in the car, some of your trip data as well, mileage, service intervals, oil level, very handy to know, and tire pressures only when the car's going, plus alarms. I like this because you can set special alarms here like a valet alarm. So if you're dropping your car off at the hotel or something like that, and you want to make sure they don't go do burnouts in your new 911, you can just set the valet alarm and it will keep you informed of what they're doing and also restrict some movement for the car. You can set a speed alarm if you've given it to the kids. You want to make sure they're not going too fast. And also you can then geo-fence the car as well, so it will alarm when the car leaves that area. And then if you jump over to the Explore menu, it tells you exactly where the car's located. Useful if you're in a big parking lot and you cannot find the thing. Finally, let's have a look over here at the screen, or the screens in front of the driver. This is what you're going to be looking at when you're driving, and there's some interesting information on display here as well. We'll kick off with the screen on the right-hand side. You scroll through the menus available using the steering wheel. The first one you have there is the temperature of the car, the oil temperature, battery voltage, all very useful information. And next along is the trip computer. I like this display because that's your navigation. So that's a really handy screen to have available to you, so you're not taking your eyes off the road, but you still know where you need to turn off and critical sort of things that are popping up. Next up is the timer. So you can activate the Sport Chrono timer through the main infotainment screen, or over here, you simply click start, clock starts, and then you can stop and reset that here as well. You're not going to be doing a whole lot of lap timing in this car, but it is useful to have. You go back one menu, jump down to the next one. The G bubble, you can see how many G's you're cracking, and then you can also see what the maximum is. There you go, 0.86 G's someone has done in this car, it wasn't me. Next and final one is where your torque is going. Is it going to the front of the car, the rear of the car? It's kind of like an on-demand all-wheel drive system, so it's always going to be doing one or the other, and then it shuffles between them as required in terms of where it needs extra traction. On the left-hand side is where you'll find the outside temperature, and then just three menus, which is your odometer with the trip function. You then have the speed limit if you have a speed limiter set up, and finally navigation. Now the interesting thing here is you can move through the different modes for the cruise control. You have normal cruise control, there's no radar cruise control on this car, which is disappointing. You have a hill descent control, and then finally you have a speed limiter function as well. So you move through all of those using this control down here on the steering wheel. Enough about infotainment, let's look at the other features you're getting as part of the entry-level Cayenne. Dual zone climate control, that's here on the sides. You get a little LCD display, and I love the knurled finish on these switches. It's just a really nice premium looking setup. What isn't all that premium though is all the stuff you miss out on. So heated seats are optional, as I mentioned before, but then you've got buttons here that do nothing. So that's the cooled seats. You have a sport button there, auto parking button there, an individual button there. None of them do anything, but I did notice that as you press them or press near them, you're leaving fingerprints all over this piano black stuff. So that is the downside of piano black. It marks easily and it just looks dirty all the time from the natural oils on your finger. In terms of safety, low and high speed autonomous emergency braking. So that's the technology that stops the car if you don't. You have an epic looking panoramic sunroof that comes as standard with a blind that will close over if you don't want that much light coming in. Get these beautiful leather seats. So they come standard in the Cayenne. There's also electric seat adjustment, and you can actually choose between the sports seats or the comfort seats. Either way you go, there are no cost option. You can just pick whichever one you want. It's disappointing though to not see a head-up display. I think that's probably an option, another one of the many options you can get with the car, but something like that I would have thought would be standard on a car like this. And then littered throughout the cabin you have the USB connectivity now that steps ahead of the last generation of USB. You may need to get some converters though if you don't have many USB-C devices. Finally, let me show you what the key looks like. This is arguably my favorite part of this car. Check that out. It's in the shape of a Porsche, and all of their keys look like this, and I think that is just the best looking car key I've ever come across. Unlock, lock, and boot. But keep in mind, like I said, the comfort access is optional. So while this stays in your pocket to start the car, you need to pay extra for it to stay in your pocket to unlock the doors, which is a bit stupid. If you don't option that, you've got to take this out and manually unlock the doors. How about practicality? Let's start with storage. Where are you going to put your phone? Well, phone easily fits here. There's also another slot here for it as well. Bottle storage easily fits in there. There's some teeth there as well to grab the bottles so it doesn't move around. And then in the door, you have a giant bin in there for bottle storage. I reckon you could even fit a wine bottle or something in there, plus other odds and ends. Center console is fairly decent sized. You'll find your USB-C ports in there, and then the glove box is pretty big as well. Plus, you'll also find an air conditioner slot in there as well, so you can have some cured meats if you're heading to some bratwurst festival or something like that. What about comfort? Yes, this is a very comfortable place to be seated. Porsches are all about being driver-centric, and I really feel that way at the moment. This seat hugs me in beautifully. The steering wheel sits really nicely in the hand. I just feel like I want to go for a drive. The second row of the Cayenne Coupe is actually surprisingly comfortable and cavernous. Have Look at this. I have a pretty decent amount of headroom, despite the fact this really slopes down at the back there. Legroom is pretty good as well. I have lots of knee room, even with this sports seat fairly far back. Toe room's actually not too bad as well. There is a bit of carpet sort of sitting down there, but outside of that, I have enough room to stretch out and relax here, which is nice. The controls on the side of the seat allow you to go backwards and forwards as well, so you can recline if you want a bit of a relaxed environment. Have a look at this though. You're not going to have a center passenger annoying you because there is no seat here. It's like a little storage area, and then you have a center armrest that folds down as well with a couple of cup holders. See how that works. That's interesting, they're different sizes. It's actually 3 different sizes. So big one there, smaller, and then smallest. And then in the door, you can lose a bottle as well, plus a little bit of room either side of it too. In the back of the seats, you have these mat pockets. They're like quite firm and rigid. 2 USB-C outlets here for charging and a 12-volt outlet. You get your own rear air vents, but no secondary zone of climate in the back here. That is an option. You can get a 4-zone climate control setup, and then another hidey hole down there. And I've got to just say once more, that panoramic roof looks fantastic back here. It stretches the entire length of the car. So it is a beautiful thing to look out of, especially with that tinting. It makes this feel like a very premium and serene place, along with that privacy glass as well. Thankfully, you're not losing out on cargo space just because it is a coupe. So release is under here, and then it's an automatic tailgate. That comes up nicely out of the way, even for tall people, which is good. It's a pretty cavernous boot, 625 litres of cargo capacity, and it expands to a little over 1,500 litres when you drop the second row. I'll show you how that works in a second, but here is your load floor. It sits nicely in line with the boot lip here, and then when you crack this open, you'll see the spare tyre. Now, come and have a look at this. Let me show you something. So firstly, you've got a clever mechanism here to hold this up, just like, traditional bonnet lever. Now, you may wonder, what do you do with this? That looks like a really sort of thin and narrow tyre, but it's actually folded in on itself. Once you pull this out of the car, you hook it up to the compressor. That then starts inflating the tyre and it pops out. I've had to replace one of these before on an Audi Q7, and it is fascinating how it works. The only drama you have, though, is your spare tyre, 21 inches on this car and really wide on the back, then has to go into the boot, and it is pretty heavy to lift in. So that is one thing worth keeping in mind with cars like this, that when you do have to change tyres, they are bloody heavy to get into the car. Now, what about the rest of this space here? You've got a little storage nook on the side with a net, and then you have an emergency release for the fuel and also the boot in this slot over here. Your cargo blind, that goes out of the way pretty easily, but there is a problem. Pull that out, yank that out as well. It can't actually go anywhere, so you're gonna have to leave this at home or sit it on the cargo floor because you won't be able to do anything else with it. And in terms of folding those seats, you can't fold them from the back here. The only one you can do is the center armrest, and then to do the other two, you have to actually go around to the side and then pull this lever. And the other problem is they don't fold flat either, so you've got this little lip here. Okay, so let's see how our luggage fits in the back. Laptop bag fits there, and now red luggage squeezes in right there as well. So yeah, there you go. Good size boot for a really oddly shaped car. We've hit the road in the Cayenne, and let's talk about what's under the bonnet of this car. It's a 3-litre turbocharged V6 petrol engine, so it's a single turbocharger, and in this car it uses a twin scroll configuration. It makes 250 kilowatts of power, 450 newton meters of torque, so it's a reasonable amount of power and a good starting point for the Cayenne range. Remember, these engines used to be really small compared to this, so this is a really good entry point, and it gives you a car that'll do 0 to 100 in 6 seconds, which is pretty impressive for a bog standard SUV. That engine is mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission. No dual clutch business here. It's a simple torque converter setup. It's really smooth. The gear shifts are nice and quick, and then if at any point you want to take over shifting on your own, you just use the paddle shifters on the steering wheel and then go for gold. Fuel economy isn't actually that impressive at the entry level to the Cayenne range. It's 9.9 litres per 100 kilometres, and that's because a diesel option isn't available, and your e-hybrids are now more expensive, and the Turbo S is also only an e-hybrid, so they're kind of positioning that plug-in hybrid technology as a premium product, but you are saving a lot of money by getting the entry level, so you are making up for that in terms of fuel use and the differences between those models. Let's talk drive modes. So you have a few to choose from. You can go individual, where you configure your own settings using the screen over here, or you can go with some presets. You have sport mode, which sharpens the throttle and the steering response, or you can go into my favorite. I kind of just skip sport mode and go straight into Sport Plus, and we have some corners here to see what this feels like. So immediately I can feel the steering is a little heavier there. The gearbox is being a little sharper with its shifts. What I can also do is there's a button in the center here of the drive select system. If I hit that, I get 20 seconds of sport response. Have a listen to that. That sounds really bloody good. It actually goes all right. That thing's pulling along nicely. So sport response for 20 seconds will basically give you the most ferocious of everything. It pre-charges the turbo, so everything is singing nicely, and it means that you can overtake, you can have some fun through some twists like that, and you're getting everything that you can out of this car. I'll tell you what, it actually feels really fun behind the wheel. One thing I am noticing here behind the wheel is the ride. I'm really dumbfounded with how comfortable this is. So if we switch it back to normal mode now, the ride is so smooth that you would never ever pick that this car is on 21-inch alloy wheels. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. So in and around town, this is going to feel really nice and smooth. Even in Sport Plus mode, when you've got everything in its firmest setting, the car is firm, but it's on the comfortable side of firm. So it means that when you do punt it into some of these corners, it actually still feels nice and smooth. Now, talking about handling, I cannot believe how good this car is driving at the moment. Remember, this is a base model to the Cayenne range in the coupe configuration, and it is handling like it's on rails. I almost wonder what would actually need to happen here for this car to get unsettled. It is heavy. I mean, it's a little over 2,000 kilograms, 2 tons, but you really don't feel it behind the wheel. The engine is super responsive. The steering offers plenty of feedback. And then as you glide through these corners, the body just sits dead flat. Really impressive. How easy is it to see out of these SUV cum coupe things? Front is okay. I mean, I am cocooned here in the driver's seat. It's a really sort of commanding driving position, and it feels sporty at the same time. So it's not like a Land Cruiser where you're sitting on top of the car. I actually feel like I'm driving a sporty SUV here. That is the name, right? Sport utility vehicle. Visibility out the wing mirrors is good. Out the sides it's good as well, but it's not great out the back. That coupe sloping line makes it really tricky to see out the back of. Thankfully, you do get blind spot monitors and all those sort of electronic aids, but I think that would be a little bit of a problem if you have 2 passengers in tow and you've got a boot full of cargo as well. The other surprising element to this car as well, again riding on those 20-inch alloy wheels and the staggered width tyres, is the noise. There really isn't much noise inside the cabin. It's nice and serene, it's nice and quiet. You don't even really hear the exhaust note much, and that's, I mean, I've configured the diamond here to do exhaust buttons, so I press that and the exhaust is now on. In here you don't hear it, but from outside you do. This is what it sounds like. The turning circle is pretty reasonable at 12.1 metres, and the surprising thing as well is that this will tow 3.5 tonnes with a brake trailer. You wouldn't have thought that a car like this would actually be capable of towing. The other outstanding part about this chassis is the stop-start system. As you come to a halt, it doesn't wait till you've completely stopped. It'll actually switch the car off while you're rolling. So as I come to a stop here, it'll get to around the sort of 6 km/h mark, and there it is, it's off there. Roll back on and then it's back on. So yeah, it's a really good integration and it's not jarring like some of the stop-start systems can be. So the Porsche Cayenne Coupe, what do we reckon? Well, I don't think it's the best looking car, but styling is entirely subjective. If you put that to one side though, this car is fantastic to drive. It drives like a Porsche, it handles like a Porsche, and despite the fact that this is the base model in the range, it doesn't really look like the base model. So it doesn't look like you've cheaped out and bought the cheapest one you can. This really does feel premium, it drives premium, it rides beautifully, and then it handles when you need it to as well. This is a massive step forward for Porsche from the last generation of Cayenne. So if you haven't driven this yet and you're interested, go and do it. Pricing, well, look, they're always going to charge you a lot of money for options. They can do it and they will get away with it while they can. So just expect that when you go into the dealership, and don't be too surprised if you end up spending another $10, $15, maybe even $20,000 more than you're expecting to get a few bits and pieces. If you have found this video useful, I'd love it if you could share it. Also, please hit the like button, subscribe, and also press the bell icon as well. Let me know in the comments below whether you've driven one of these. What do you think of the new generation of the Porsche products? And would you go an electric Porsche? I'm really interested to see what everyone thinks of the new Taycan. I've had a passenger ride in that and it absolutely blew me away. Big fan of electric cars, so I'm keen to see whether that resonates with the Porsche Stuttgart fans out there. Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, take it easy.